No capitalist nation provide property rights to their citizens. So this is a perfect example of what happens in modern discourse. Someone comes along and makes an incredibly loaded statement, and then someone from a different side gets offended and makes an equally loaded statement, and since neither of them are speaking the same language, nothing is really exchanged. They just shout at each other from different sides of the aisle. Active listening can't fix this. And this happens over and over and over in modern and public discourse because people don't bother to define terms before they start talking. Freedom, justice, rights, capitalism, socialism, communism, property, half the time it feels like people aren't even talking about the same thing. People inherit slogans without definitions, all platitudes, no fundamentals, and that creates semantic chaos. Now, to be clear, I repeatedly said this discussion is not simply capitalism good, communism bad. That's not the level I'm trying to operate on, and it's dialectical to begin with. Trying to cultivate dialogical thinking here. But for the purpose of explaining what things actually are, we do need to define some terms. Because saying communist nations protect property rights is already sneaking in an assumption about what property rights even means. Classical liberal thought, people like John Locke, who is borderline synonymous with the Enlightenment, he played such a big part, argued that rights are natural rights, meaning they are not created by the state. The state recognizes them and should protect them. This is what is being alluded to in the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That last part was Jefferson's rendition of an expression Locke used. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of estate. Actually, it's just life, liberty, estate. And most people, because of the way he defined it, estate, they see as property. But that distinction is everything. Because once the state becomes the grantor of rights, the state can also redefine, restrict, and take them away. And yes, Marxist philosophy absolutely critiques and seeks abolition of private ownership of productive property. That's not controversial. That's foundational to Marxism. So it becomes a little strange to first abolish private ownership, then later say, don't worry, the state will now protect what belongs to you. That's a fundamentally different understanding of rights and ownership. And again, this is why modern discourse constantly collapses into false binaries. If you criticize coercion, people assume you're defending greed. If you criticize greed, people assume you're defending collectivism. But once again, Christianity critiques both greed, exploitation, coercion, envy, hypocrisy, the worship of power itself. And this is why I keep saying that the issue is deeper than economics, because structures alone cannot save people from themselves. Greedy people corrupt systems. Proud people corrupt systems. Violent people corrupt systems. And history shows this happens under all human structures. capitalist, socialist, communist, religious. So long as humans are corruptible, there will be corruption. What do we believe human beings actually are? And where do rights come from? Because if rights come from God or natural law or intrinsic human dignity, then the state recognizes them. But if rights come from the state, power, consensus, then rights become permissions. And permissions can always be revoked.